she's not. Good evening and welcome to the Stearns County Board of Adjustment public hearing for Thursday, August 8th, 2024. Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. I'll perform a roll call for members. Dan?
Here.
Amy?
Here.
Jason?
Here.
And Bonnie?
Here.
All right, thank you. I have a couple of announcements to make. If you are in possession of a cell phone or some other type of electronic device, I ask that you put it on silent mode at this time. Please note that all testimony is being recorded for the record. If you're going to speak, you will be asked to state your name and address for the record first, and then go ahead with your input after you've been recognized by the chair. Members of the Board of Adjustment are appointed by the County Board of Commissioners with one member from each of the 5 commissioner districts, one member at large, and one member appointed from the Planning Commission. I'm going to give a brief overview of our proceedings this evening. I will read the variance request and open the public hearing. While I'm reading your request, I would ask that the applicant or their representatives come forward and have a seat in front of the board by the microphone. The applicant or representative will be asked to state their name and address for the record. Environmental Services staff will provide a brief overview of the requested variance, the staff report, and if any correspondence has been received regarding the request. The applicant will then provide any input, corrections, concerns, comments, etc. Once the applicant has provided their testimony, the board will discuss the request and ask questions of staff or the applicant. Upon completion of the board questions, I will ask if there is anyone in the audience wishing to speak to this request. If there is, I would ask that person to come up to the podium, state their name and address for the record, and give their testimony. When all testimony is complete, I will ask the board members for a motion to close the public hearing. Once the motion is passed to close the public hearing, there will be no further input from the audience, from the applicant, or Environmental Services staff, unless recognized by the chair, or if one of the board members wants some type of clarification. The board will review and discuss the findings of fact. The findings are a series of questions that the board is required to answer based on Minnesota statute and the requirements of the ordinance. Based upon the answers to those questions, the board will either grant or deny the variance request. All questions must be answered in the affirmative by the board. Once the findings are complete, there will be a motion to approve or deny the request based upon those findings. Okay. Agenda item number 1. An after-the-fact request from Barbara Schmidt, Paynesville, Minnesota, from sections 10.2.11a1a and 10.2.11a5 of Stearns County Land Use and Zoning Ordinance number 439 to leave as constructed 70 square foot and 120 square foot decks within the bluff impact zone and less than 75 feet from the ordinary high water level of Coronis Lake, classified as general development. Also a request from section 9.9.a1 to replace a 639 square foot deck and 26.65 square foot deck with stairs, less than 10 feet from a side property line in an R1 zoning district. Said ordinance requires structures be placed a minimum 10 feet from a side property line in an R1 zoning district, 75 feet from the ordinary high water level of a lake classified general development, and not within bluff impact zones. Affected property is Lot 12 of Kruger subdivision, a platted subdivision of Government Lot 4, Section 34, Track 122 North, Rod 32 West, Paynesville Township. Property address 14839 Linden Hill Drive, Paynesville, Minnesota. Could the applicant please step forward? All right. Be sure the little green light is on, and then please state your name and address for the record.
Barbara Schmidt. I live at 14839 Linden Hill Road in Paynesville Township.
Thank you. Roll call for who was able to visit the site. Dan?
Yes, and I'm,
Oh, sorry.
Okay, sorry, go ahead.
I'll say it again. Barbara Schmidt. I live at 14839 Linden Hill Road in Paynesville Township.
Thank you. So Dan, were you able to visit the site?
yes, and I met with the applicants at the site.
Okay, anything that you'd like to state on record that was discussed?
Just took a look and explained the issues that they have with the deck, which is deteriorating, and actually I talked a little bit about the neighbors next door, and also with the handicap possibilities that they have and what they're addressing. So had a nice meeting with the applicants.
Thank you. Amy?
Yes.
Jay?
Yes.
Bonnie?
Yes, and I had a similar conversation to Dan's.
Okay, and I was not able to visit the site. All right, staff report, please.
The applicant owns Lot 12 of Kruger subdivision, part of Government Lot 4, and also part of Government Lot 4 on Lake Coronis. The property was purchased by the applicants in 1976. The plat was done in 1927 prior to any official controls. The property is 13,742 square feet or 0.32 acres in lot area per the certificate of survey that they provided. The property lies in an R1 zoning district. Per homeowner testimony, the original dwelling was constructed in 1965 or earlier, again, which is prior to any shoreland rules. In 1978, the homeowners did obtain a permit to construct a 12 by 20 L-shaped deck. Over time, the deck was expanded in excess of the permitted dimensions, and now it's 4.2 feet from the property boundary. From 2010, an aerial photo review shows replacement of the steps down the bluff to access the lake and the expansion of landings for those steps. It also indicates that the deck boards were replaced. The lower deck is approximately 120 square feet in area and about 7 feet from the ordinary high water level. And the higher deck is about 70 square feet, and that sits about 52 feet from the ordinary high water level. And then both of those are within a bluff impact zone. So the applicants would like to keep those as constructed. Again, they don't meet the lake setback and they're within the bluff impact zone. They also would like to replace the deck that was expanded without a permit to the same dimensions as it is today. Again, 4.2 feet from the side property line, and then also a new deck on the side of the home, which sits 6.6 feet from the side property line. The property is in the shoreland overlay of Coronis Lake, which is a general development lake. Coronis is on the list of impaired waters. The existing and proposed impervious lot coverage is 23.4%. The septic system is compliant. One alternative would be to replace the decks nearest the lake with landings, which could amount to 32 square feet in area, and those would be allowed encroachments on the lake setback and within the bluff. Also, they could replace the illegally expanded deck back to the 1978 permitted dimensions and then reduce the landing and steps on the side to stairway 4 feet in width. That'd be allowed encroachment as well. And one last option would be to replace the deck with an at-grade patio. Paynesville Township, the Coronis Lake Association, North Fork of the Crow River Watershed District, DNR, and property owners within 500 feet have been notified. I do have 2 items of correspondence, both from the neighbors, the adjacent neighbors. at 14831 Linden Hill Drive. Due to my other commitments, I have written my testimony. I've been neighbors with the Schmidts for over 30 years. I've had no issues with the existing 70 and 120 square foot decks within the bluff area. Secondly, I have no issues for them to remove both decks with stairs which are attached to their home and for them to erect the new deck with stairs facing the lake and the new deck and stairs for their main door access, even if they're encroaching on the property line. The Schmidts have been superior neighbors and have always done good for the community. They are great homeowners and take pride in what they have. Also from the other adjacent neighbor, Phyllis Conlin, Stearns County Board of Adjustment. I'm a next door neighbor of Barbara Schmidt. I support the designated improvements to the property, which will not adversely impact me. My Paynesville address is 14855 Linden Hill Drive, Phyllis Conlin, St. Paul, Minnesota. And that is all I have, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Any comments or additional information from the applicant?
From my understanding, based on information that we have, the original cabin was built in 1956. We bought it, as you said, in 76. The deck way down at the bottom, the half moon deck, right at the water line down there, that was put in 1984 following the floods and the loss of the banks that happened in our neighborhood. I think you probably know about the banks that have collapsed over by Stonegate, which is just a few houses down. The two properties next to Stonegate coming our way, they had lost their banks like in 83 during the 83 flood. And they lost probably 30 feet in. As a result of that rain, we had a lot of washout down at the bottom. And we had purchased our cabin in 76, but due to money, we just had to do what we could each year. But in 84, following that flood, we did hire Lakeland Nursery and Landscape out of Wilmer to construct something to hold that bank because it was eroded so bad. So that half moon was done. It's got the big timbers on the back and it's screwed into the hill. And I have pictures of it if you wanted to see it, because I don't know if let's see here.
So I think if you give it to Angie, she can put it on the... No?
Yes, please.
What?
Well, we got
We have to display it
Okay.
for everybody.
I see, okay. So they put that in, and we lived in the city at the time. We're working, that sort of thing, and they had indicated they would, they would handle everything. So, so that is the half moon that sits down there, and big timbers, and they're drilled into the hill. So that wall has been extremely stable. So, and then the stairs that go down to our dock, which is that next picture from that half moon, that comes right onto our dock, and then they fold up onto that landing in the winter when we take the docks out. So, and then the support beams under that, it's hard to see. They go back into the hill versus straight down, so that they aren't affected by the shifting water or the ice when it comes out in the spring. So that was constructed in 1984. And the deck that was enlarged from the 1978 permit on our to the current structure that's attached to the cabin or the house. That was redone because our big trees, basswood trees, came down and damaged that current deck. So because those trees, and that's why we had an L shape, because of the big trees. We went around the trees to build the deck. So when we rebuilt the deck after the we'd lost the trees and it damaged the deck in 2000 by a local carpenter. Then we did,
Time to go home.
okay, is it over?
Not something you said.
Okay, good.
It's technology.
Okay, so then we basically squared off the deck and erected it over where those trees had come down from. So then we could square it off and make it the size that it currently is. And then in 2010, as was mentioned, the stairs down to the dock, we had to redo them because they were falling apart. So that's when the landing at the top was enlarged. And then our stairs were just redone, resurfaced is all the way down to that half moon area.
Thank you. Any questions from board members?
You guys live here full time?
We do now, yes. Since 2010, we moved out there full time.
Madam Chair, just a question probably for the staff. So on the report, they are requesting, how is this phrased? Keep as constructed without a permit. Does not asking for a permit have any long-term consequences for the site?
Madam Chair, Member Wienerman, I guess that's why they're here tonight, is to ask to obtain a permit after the fact. Since the construction was done without a permit, they're here asking so they can keep it.
I see where I got it now. Okay. Didn't understand the writing. I'm good.
I have a question for applicant. So I see the big yellow rectangle, that's the deck attached to the home. What was the shape of it before you expanded it? Was it generally that shape, or was it just adding the extra to the bottom, or?
It was, where you see the flowers and the chairs on this side of the deck, that was where some giant trees were, some big giant basswoods were. And so we had to work around those on the original plan back in 1978, 78. And then those trees came down.
Okay, so Angie, could you go back to the plot drawing, the plat, that one, yep. Oh. There we go. So you had to un-L that chunk. So the rest of it though, so you had that gap where the deck was, but between where the tree was and that door at the corner of the building, was that where the deck always was, which is the part that's closest to the neighboring property?
Yes. And there's only, if you notice on here, there's only 14 and a half feet between our neighbor's house and our house. So, I mean, it's hard to get a setback of 10 and 10. And so if you look at the corner of our deck, right at the property line, they're saying that's 4.5 feet. If you look at the corner of their deck, it's 4.5 feet to that property line, because we're so close together. Thankfully, we love our neighbors. And so when we go from our kitchen which is our main entry. That's the yellow on the side. Those entrances were there when we bought the place at that side of the house. And so we built that when we constructed that. Then we have a walkway between that to the front deck. And that back stairway is our only ADA approved entrance. And when my dad was in a wheelchair, the reason we jutted it out at the top was because when you get the wheelchair up there, then you got to get behind it and then lift up the front so that the wheels can get through the threshold. And so that's why we made that jut out there for an ADA perspective. And the thought going forward is that if we do, hopefully we won't, but if we do need more ADA ramps, that we would then be able to put the ramp going from the back steps to the front deck. And that's how anyone would be able to, that is in a wheelchair or requires ADA, to get to the front deck.
In the original configuration of the deck, was it flush with the side of the building, or was it always, because it looks like it does stick out from the side of the building a couple of feet?
It does stick out. That's where the stairs were before, because the trees were right there. They were very close to the property. So the stairs came up at that point. So it was that wide from sticking out from the side of the building, but it was more of a stairs up to that area.
So question for staff, if the deck, and maybe I'm not visualizing it correctly, but if the deck was, it sounds like still less than 10 feet from the property line, how did a permit get issued for it at that time? Or am I misunderstanding?
Well, Madam Chair, in 1978, we didn't have the technology that we do today. And we didn't have certificates of surveys when we issued permits. And so we're much more advanced today in these times than back in 78.
Okay, so if she had not covered up where the tree was and just replaced the deck in its existing footprint, would she have to be here today for at least that part of the construction?
Madam Chair, if it was replaced to the original dimensions, a variance would not be required even if it didn't meet the side property line.
Okay, thank you.
Madam Chair, a question for staff on the deck leading towards the water, the L-shaped twisty deck. If the current landowners or a future landowner wants to straighten the deck, are we memorializing the location of the deck now, or can that deck be straightened without a permit?
If tonight's request were granted, they could replace it in the same configuration. Any enlargement would require them to come back here.
Could they straighten it? So remove the existing deck and make it straight. So they reduce the overall footage of the deck, but not have the bends in it. Would that require a variance as well?
You mean to change the orientation of the deck?
To shorten it and just, yeah.
Are you talking about on the bluff itself?
Yeah. Yep.
Okay.
I wonder, Madam Chair, Member Wienerman, if this would help. So property owners get 32 square foot landings,
Okay, that's good.
and then a 4 foot max stairway. So that could happen without a variance.
Mm-hmm.
Done.
Correct. Yep.
Apparently I'm not getting very clear tonight.
So question just for my own understanding, because it is in the bluff, right? That entire M-shaped arrangement is in the bluff. So if that's part of what these decks are violating, I guess I'm confused. I thought you couldn't build anything in a bluff, or is it just because they existed before our standards were in place?
Madam Chair, they could do 4-foot wide stairways and 32 square foot landings
Even if it's on a
without a
bluff?
variance and without a construction site permit,
Okay, I thought,
even in the bluff. Those are allowed encroachments. They're allowed to gain access to the lake with that.
okay,
If they exceed 32 square feet, then a permit's required and then a variance because of the bluff situation and not meeting the lake setback.
okay, thank you. Any other questions from board members?
Yeah, just one more. So under the alternative recommended conditions, if the board chooses to grant the variance, you would like to see number 6 added as a condition, right? Which is construction site permit, building plans, et cetera. That would be part of our granting of the variance.
Madam Chair, Member Wienerman, if the board so chooses to add that as a condition, that is perfectly fine. That's going to be standard CAN language on the approval letter.
Okay.
Basically, we're just wanting to make the applicants aware that a potential approval tonight, it doesn't end there. You also need to get a permit.
Thank you.
These pictures might help a little bit more too. I'll just give you these. Okay, that's a look at, standing and looking towards the lake. So that's our entry, our ADA approved entry right there. And I have a little drawn line there in the middle. That's the property line. And if you look at that, to our stairway to that property line is 8 feet. If you go to that from the property line to our neighbor's house, that's 8 feet. Okay, so that's one drawing. Yep, so that's 8 feet and the other one is 8 feet. And that's looking at it from, a different angle. And so we are 10 feet if you go from our foundation of our cabin to the line. And then it's 6 feet if you go from the deck to the line. Then, because the lines are not straight at all, the property lines, it angles. And so at the end of our deck, that's where they say it's 4.5 feet. And if you look at their stairway off of their deck on the side there to the line, that's about 4.5 feet. So, we only have it, it's close. And all the trees in that line that you see are all of our trees. Yeah, and that's just where the line goes, the property line. Just trying to.
Okay, so just to make sure I understand, I apologize, I have to figure it out, but it sounds like the decks that we are requested for the after the fact, which is leave as currently constructed, are the 2 that are on the bluff, and the ones that they want to replace and possibly expand are the ones attached to the home, right? Okay, just because they just have numbers and that's hard for my brain to figure it out. Thank you.
Wait till the last item.
Madam Chair, I know you were asking about what the deck looked like back when it was constructed. I did see a copy of the permit. The So this must be where that tree Barbara was speaking of was.
Yes, the two big trees.
So this is what it looked like, and then the stairs came off this way.
Okay, so the deck was flush with the building and the stairs came out, and now the deck expands where the stairs were. Okay, thank you.
Madam Chair, just so it's clear, the steps coming off the side of the deck, if they're 4 feet in width or less, that's an allowed encroachment into the setback. It's just the deck surface itself is not.
And I have a question. Is that because of the jut out at the top?
Madam Chair, I'm not certain what you're referring to.
I think what he's saying is that the stairs, because they're just a way to access the deck, that's why they're allowed, because they're small enough and it's just for access. It's not like you're living on those stairs.
Okay.
Right, it's ingress and egress. Yeah, so that's why it's an allowed encroachment. Sorry.
Any other questions from board members?
Madam Chair, just a question, just for clarification from the applicant. The half moon down below, you said that was constructed when?
That was done in 1984.
84, so that's been there for 40 years.
Yes.
Thank you.
And the one at the top has been there since 2010.
Okay, thank you.
Are there any signs of either of them, like weakening, or, you know, it's been there 40 years, there's a chance that things shifted? Any sign of that happening at all right now?
No, not on, we're
Not as
lucky.
far as you're aware.
No, Madam Chair, that's
Yes.
kind of the basis of my comment, because I looked at it and it looked like they were a lot newer than that. They look structurally sound and well kept up. So it was 40 years. That's pretty good on a lake like that. So with all the wave action. Thank you.
Any other questions from board members? Okay. Anyone in the audience wish to speak to this request? Is there anyone in the audience that wishes to speak to this request? Okay. Anyone in the audience wish to speak to this request? Hearing none, I'm open for a movement to close the public hearing.
I'll move to close.
I've got a movement from Dan and a second from Amy. Jason?
Yes.
Bonnie?
Yes.
And I'm also a yes. The public hearing is now closed, and we'll move towards the finding of facts. So it looks like we have, the way that they arranged it was kind of grouped by the type. So if it's okay with folks, we can do the after the fact findings for both of the decks that are on the bluff, and then the finding of facts for the two decks attached to the home. Does that sound okay for folks? Okay. Let's do the after the fact request for the bluff decks. Okay, so when considering an after the fact request, the Board of Adjustment should consider these additional factors when deciding the statutory criteria. Did the applicant act in good faith and attempt to comply with the ordinance? Did the applicant make a substantial investment? Is the construction completed? Are there similar structures in the area? And are the county's benefits outweighed by the applicant's burden if the applicant were required to comply with the ordinance? Okay, number one, is the proposed use allowed in the zoning district in which the subject property is located? Yes or no?
Madam Chair, yes, decks are allowed in R1.
Okay, I have a yes from Amy. Dan?
Yes.
Jason?
Yes.
Bonnie?
Yes.
And I'm a yes. Question number two, is the variance in harmony with the general purposes and intent of the official control? Yes or no? So where the official control is limiting the size of those landings on decks that are on a bluff, is my understanding.
Madam Chair, question for staff. So these were built before the ordinance change?
Madam Chair, the state shoreline rules took effect in 1972,
Okay.
so that they were done after the official controls.
Okay, I'm going to propose a yes. I look at the general purposes and what's there. And to me, I'm okay with that.
Okay. I'm also going to be a yes specifically because it sounds like the rebuilt was due to the flooding, and it sounds like the property owners did their due diligence in order to shore up, literally shore up the shore so that it would not collapse. They don't seem huge to me. They are outside of the range, but they don't seem like gigantic. They have been there for 40 years or over 10 years for the top one. The construction's completed. I don't know that the county has very much benefit if they reduce the size of those, especially the one that's already built into the bluff in a sturdy manner. So that's why I'm a yes. Amy,
Yes.
Jason,
Yes.
Bonnie,
And I'm going to say yes, and with agreeing that we really don't want to disturb that. You know, if it's doing a good job of holding the bank back, even removal of that could disturb that and disrupt that.
Get costly as well.
okay, so that's a yes for number 2.
Madam
Number,
Chair, is there time for a question?
yes.
I want to ask the staff on this situation. This is a cantilever off with a drilled. Is that the recommended method as they're going forward? It's nothing. There is no piling going down, or as you see it being constructed, do you see that as the right way to do it?
Madam Chair, Member Ray, we don't enforce code, so we don't really recommend to homeowners
Okay.
or applicants on how to construct it. Like for stairways, they can dig them into the slope, or they can just build them at grade if they want. But it's really left up to the applicant and how they want, and the contractor.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you. Number 3, is the variance request consistent with a comprehensive plan? Yes or no?
Madam Chair, I'm going to say yes under living goal number 3. Support housing options, yada, yada.
Okay, we have a yes from Amy. Go ahead, Jason.
Madam Chair, I'd like to add under Lakeshore Living Policies, number 3, which is discourage the alteration of natural shorelines, because you folks made a heck of an effort to avoid trees, so congratulations on that. And then also, where was it? Number 6, which is expand mitigation requirements, because as was mentioned previously, you worked to stabilize the shoreline after the flooding situation, so I think you've done a good job on looking at mitigation efforts.
Okay, so that's a yes from Amy and a yes from Jason. Dan,
I'm also yes.
Bonnie,
Yes.
and I'm a yes. Number 4, is the property owner proposing to use the property in a reasonable manner not permitted by an official control?
I'm a yes.
Okay, do you have a little bit of an explanation for the yes?
Well, they're enjoying the property. They have a bluff condition over there that they're using the best they possibly can. I think they've done a nice job, even like what was just stated by every year, putting more and more rock on that shore to make sure it doesn't erode. So I'm a yes.
Okay, a yes from Dan. Amy?
Yes, and I'd like to add it's been there for 40 years.
Okay, Jason?
Yes.
Bonnie?
And I'm going to say yes for the reason that, you know, with a stairway that's as steep as this stairway is, having landings there add a safety factor to it.
Okay, thank you, and I'm also a yes. Number 5, is the plight of the landowner due to circumstances unique to the property not created by the landowner?
I'm going to say yes. The cabin was there, the way it's situated on the bluff. It hasn't moved closer to the bluff, and so I would say that I'm a yes.
Okay, that's a yes from Dan. I'm going to say a yes, but that I don't think it's necessarily unique to the property. I do think it is created by the landowner, but it's been there a long time. If we think about the considerations for after the fact, it's been there a long time. They really worked hard in order to make it stabilized. It's not overly large, so I'm going to say a yes asterisk. Amy?
Yes.
Jason?
Full yes.
He has no asterisk. Bonnie.
Yes.
Okay, so that's a yes for number 5. Number 6, will the variance maintain the essential character of the locality? Yes or no?
Madam Chair, it's similar to adjacent properties, so yes, it will maintain the essential character of the locality.
Okay, that's a yes from Jason. Dan?
I'm a yes.
Amy?
Yes.
Bonnie?
Yes, it's been there for 40 years.
Okay, and I'm also a yes. Number 7, the need for the variance involves more than economic considerations. Yes or no?
Madam Chair, yes, I believe economics were not discussed.
It's a yes from Amy. Dan?
Yes.
Jason?
Yes.
Bonnie?
Yes, I believe it'd be usability and safety would be more the reason.
Okay, and I'm also a yes. So that looks like all 7 were answered in the affirmative. I'm looking for a movement to approve the request.
Madam Chair, I'll make a motion to approve
All right,
the bluff variance.
I have a motion from Amy. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
And a second from Bonnie. Dan?
Yes.
And Jason?
Yes.
And I'm also a yes. That request has been approved. Okay. Moving on to the findings of fact, and this is for replacing the 658 square foot deck 4.2 feet from a side property line and 26.65 square foot deck with stairs 6.6 feet from a side property line in an R1 zoning district. Number 1, the proposed use is allowed in the zoning districts in which the subject property is located. Yes or no?
Madam Chair, that's a yes. Decks are allowed in R1.
Okay, we have a yes from Amy. Dan?
Yes.
Jason?
Yes.
Bonnie?
Yes.
And I'm also a yes. Number 2, the variance will be in harmony with the general purposes and intent of the official controls. Yes or no?
Madam Chair, Jason Wiedemann, I believe they will be in harmony. You know, where as the applicant talked about, there's some ADA considerations here. The neighbors, one of the purpose of the controls is to minimize neighbor conflicts. The neighbors expressed assent to this condition, so I'm going to say yes.
Okay, we have a yes from Jason. Dan?
Yes.
Amy?
Yes.
Bonnie?
Yes.
I'm also a yes. Number 3, the variance will be consistent with the comprehensive plan. Yes or no?
Madam Chair, yes. Living goal number 3.
Okay, that's a yes from Amy. Dan?
Yes.
Jason?
Yes.
Bonnie?
Yes.
And I'm also a yes. Number 4, the property owner proposes to use the property in a reasonable manner. Yes or no?
Yes.
Okay, do you want to expand on your answer, Dan?
Yeah, it's a deck. It's got to be recovered. The wood is rotting. Safety concern. So maintaining their home.
Okay,
Yes.
I'll also be a yes, but also, like I mentioned earlier, the ADA consideration. So they are looking out for potential changes in their lifestyle and dealing with them now as opposed to in a future situation.
Having a deck is a reasonable use.
okay, so I have a yes from Dan, a yes from Jason. I'm guessing that's a yes from Amy.
Yep.
Bonnie?
Yes.
I'm also a yes. Number 5, the plight of the landowner is due to circumstances unique to the property, not created by the landowner. Yes or no?
Madam Chair, I'm going to say yeah. I do believe that the property lines are different if you looked at her photo from different sections. So either way, it wouldn't have been perfect.
Okay, we have a yes from Amy. Dan?
I'm a yes.
Jason?
Yes.
Bonnie?
Yes, and I believe, you know, when you look at the picture where the edge of the deck is, it comes out where a door is, and that's where it's too close, you know, that's the location that's too close to the neighbor. And it wouldn't be reasonable to put a deck on that didn't attach to the door of the house.
Yep. I will also be a yes and add on that the structure, the house itself was there before the applicant was there. And so it was already had a very narrow area that you could build anything between those 2 buildings and the property line, plus to allow comfortable access for someone who may need the ADA access. I think, yes, it is unique to the property. Number 6, the variance, if granted, maintains the essential character of the locality. Yes or no?
Madam Chair, yes. there's other decks in the area, so it's not going to change anything, and it's been there already since.
Okay, a yes from Amy. Dan,
Yes.
Jason,
Yes.
Bonnie,
Yes.
and I'm also a yes. Number 7, the need for the variance involves more than economics considerations, yes or no?
Madam Chair, yes, I believe economics were not discussed.
Okay, we have a yes from Amy. Dan,
Yes, it's a safety concern.
okay, Jason,
Yes.
Bonnie.
Yes.
I'm also a yes. I think that they do mention in the packet that there would be costs involved if they had to redo things, especially the landscaping, but that was definitely not the largest part. So that's a yes for number 7. All answers in the affirmative. I'm looking for a movement to approve the variance.
Madam Chair, I'll make a motion to approve the deck variance.
Okay, I have a motion from Amy. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second from Jason. Dan,
Yes.
Bonnie,
Yes.
and I'm also a yes. The variance application has been approved. Thank you very much.
Thank
If you
you.
have any questions, you can speak with staff during business hours.
Okay, great.
Thank
Thank
you.
you very much.
Moving on to agenda item number 2, a request from Luella A. Louise Revocable Trust, Paynesville, Minnesota, from sections 5.1.3c and 10.2.8a3 of Stearns County Land Use and Zoning Ordinance number 439 to create a non-conforming parcel with a minimum lot area less than the 20,000 square feet and a minimum lot width less than 100 feet in the Shoreland Overlay District of Coronis Lake, classified general development. Said ordinance requires parcels under like ownership not meeting the minimum lot area and width standards be considered one parcel for purposes of sale, transfer, or development. The affected property is the east 75 feet of Lot 4, Block 3, and Lot 3, Block 3 of Crescent Beach, Lake Coronis, Section 21, Track 122 North, Rod 32 West, Paynesville Township. Property address 16042 Lake Coronis Road, Paynesville, Minnesota. So can the applicant please come forward? All right. Be sure the green light is on the microphone, and then please state your name and address for the record.
I'm Leo Lewis, 16039 Lake Coronis Road, and I'm representing my wife as she's the owner of the trust.
Okay, thank you. Roll call for who is able to visit the site. Dan?
Yes.
Amy?
Yes.
Jason?
Yes.
Yes.
Bonnie? I was not able to visit the site. Staff report, please.
And I'd like to mention that I did have a conversation with the applicant, and he just explained to me what, how the change in all the different sections of land there happened.
Thank you.
The tract of land under consideration for this request is the east 75 feet of Lot 4, Block 3, and the east half of Lot 5, Block 4 of Crescent Beach, Lake Coronis plat. Crescent Beach, Lake Coronis was platted in 1923, obviously prior to official controls. The tract is in an R1 zoning district, and the tract is non-contiguous and non-conforming because it is less than 20,000 square feet in area and 100 feet in width. The tract does not have a building entitlement on it. In 1973, Stearns County adopted its first shoreline management ordinance, and the ordinance required a minimum lot size of 20,000 square feet for area purposes and 100 feet in width purposes for a general development lake, which Coronis is. The trust would like to attach the east 75 feet of Lot 4, Block 3 to Lots 5 and 6, Block 1 of Crescent Beach, Lake Coronis. These lots are owned by a family member but are under different ownership. Attaching that portion of the lot would not again create another building entitlement for the lots 5 and 6 of Block 1. The net effect by doing this would be the east half of Lot 5, Block 4, and Lot 3, Block 3 would then be attached to Lot 4, Block 4. Clear as mud. The property is in the shoreland overlay of Coronis Lake. there is not a septic system on this particular tract. Impervious lot coverage is not a factor or consideration. The Township of Paynesville, the City of Paynesville, Coronis Lake Association, North Fork of the Crow River Watershed District, the DNR, and owners within 500 feet have been notified of the request. Don't believe I have any correspondence. I do not, so it's all yours, Madam Chair.
Okay, thank you. For the applicant, are there any more information you'd like to give us or any comments on this request?
Could you repeat that? My hearing isn't very good.
Yeah. Is there any more information that you would like to give us for this request?
It only makes sense to tie a bunch of these properties together. The lot we're looking at to turn over to my son, that's access to his house. And so if we leave it the way it is, that's all fine, but it's going to cause a problem probably 100 years from now or whatever. So all we'd be doing is eliminating the problem so he does have access to the house. And with the, talking with the county, they said, I have the lot right next to this parcel, as that's where my septic system is for my house. They said, how about if we attach that to the house? And that would be just absolutely the best idea to do it, is tie those together, because then the septic system is along with the parcels, can't sell it off, and that's what we're going to be doing there. Then at the same time, the lot that's on the lake, 50-foot lot on the lake, now is tied to the lot across the road, and we would tie that piece of property on the lake to our lot where our house is. It would all clean everything up, make it all sensible, and I think everybody would be happy when it's all done. There is a cart trail in there that's absolutely worthless. It was platted in 1923, and it was platted in the area, so you built a house that was stud walls, exposed. People had a potty, and everybody was going to be happy back in those days, but those days just aren't the same anymore. So this would really do a lot of cleaning up.
Okay, thank you. Any questions from board members?
Madam Chair, Angie, as you have this image up, there's a lot of arrows and connectors. What are we doing here? I quickly got lost.
I can attempt
Go
it.
for it.
Madam Chair, Member Wienerman, so this piece right here would get attached with this house, where the driveway for the house goes, the driveway goes through this piece, which
Yeah.
he lives up here, right? So this chunk and 50 feet down here are together. So this would be attached to this. Then this piece down here would get attached to Mr. Lewis's and his wife's home. And this piece also would get here because their septic system is on here. So that would become attached to this, and so would this remaining 50 feet here. And this would just then go to the son because his driveway access is there.
And then another question. So we have that cartway in the middle. Is that one of the infamous deeded to the public things we're dealing with?
Madam Chair, Member Wienerman, it's dedicated back in the plat from
Okay.
the 1900s or whenever it was. So yeah, that's kind of what Mr. Lewis was talking about, the kind of a goat trail. And
Yeah.
I mean, there could be some time in the future that people want to have it vacated and then it gets split up and all that stuff, but that would be a township matter.
So question for staff, where it says that parcels under like ownership not meeting the minimum lot area should be considered one parcel for purposes of sale, transfer, or development. So does that mean if we were following the rules, both of those pieces in the middle would have to be transferred? Does that sound right? Or what would happen if we followed all the rules? Does that make sense?
If you followed all the rules, Madam Chair, the two in the middle would remain together. Or, as you said, the two in the middle would both have to go to the sun.
Okay.
But that's a little bit complicated then because the septic system for the home is on the parcel with the solar panels. So it's a good question, a good way to look at it.
Thank you.
And, looking at this, I think, we've had a lot of problems in the past where when people are trying to transfer property to somebody else. And I think by doing this, ahead of time, it's going to clean it up so that the driveway belongs to the house with the driveway, the septic belongs to the house with the septic.
Any other questions from board members? Okay. Is there anyone in the audience who'd like to speak to this request? Anyone in the audience wish to speak to this request? Anyone in the audience wish to speak to this request? Hearing none, I'm open for a movement to close the public hearing.
Move to close.
I have a movement from Dan. Do I have a second?
Second.
A second from Amy. Jason?
Yes.
Bonnie?
Yes.
I'm also a yes. The public hearing is now closed. We can move to the findings of fact. So the variance request is to create a non-conforming parcel with a minimum lot area and minimum lot width in the Shoreland Overlay District of Coronis Lake Classified General Development. Question number 1. The proposed use is allowed in the zoning districts in which the subject property is located. Yes or no?
I would say yes, it is allowed in R1 zone.
I don't think the use is changing.
No.
Okay, so we have a yes from Amy. Dan?
I'm a yes.
Jason?
Yes.
Bonnie?
Yes.
I'm also a yes. Number 2, the variance will be in harmony with the general purposes and intent of the official controls.
Madam Chair, in the case of this instance, we are dealing with a potential future issue. So if the landowner did not come and try to clean up this multi-ownership pattern, we could deal with significant troubles in the future. So I believe we are dealing with the general purposes, looking out into the future.
Okay, we have a yes from Jason. Dan?
That's my answer exactly, yes.
Amy?
And keep on record, it was platted in 1923, so.
Bonnie?
Yes.
And I am also a yes. I believe that the general purposes and intent of the official controls were that instead of having lots of tiny little lots that are too small and really increasing the density of the area, that's my understanding for why they don't want to continue having very small lots. And I don't think that that this use goes against that purpose. Number 3, the variance will be consistent with the comprehensive plan, yes or no?
I believe it does, for the reason that we're not changing density here at all. There won't be any change to that at all. It just cleans up some property ownership issues.
Okay, so this is about the comprehensive plan. Is there a specific comprehensive plan goal that you think links to this?
Madam Chair, I guess to support that, I think maybe this is tough because this is weird.
Yeah, it's not a typical
Not you.
request.
This is just a weird thing. So I think living goal 1, if I can capture, collaborate with cities and townships to maintain sustainable growth patterns.
Yes, I'll agree with that.
Okay. I think it might also tie to the rural residential policies about future density and higher density. So, okay, so I will also be a yes. Dan?
Yes.
Amy?
Yes.
And Jason?
Yes.
Okay. Number 4, the property owner proposes to use the property in a reasonable manner, yes or no?
I'm a yes on that. We're trying to clean up something that will eventually be a problem because somebody will peel off that lot and try to get a building site on top of that. So I would say.
Absolutely. And I'm a yes too.
Okay, a yes from Dan, a yes from Amy. Jason?
Yes.
Bonnie?
Yes.
And I'm also a yes. Number 5, the plight of the landowner is due to circumstances unique to the property, not created by the landowner.
Madam Chair, I'm going to say, yeah, it was platted this way, so he didn't create it. He's trying to fix it.
Okay, we have a yes from Dan, or sorry, a yes from Amy. Dan,
I'll be yes.
Jason,
Yes.
Bonnie,
Yes.
I'm also a yes. Number 6, the variance, if granted, maintains the essential character of the locality. Yes or no?
I'm going to say yes, it doesn't change. You know, what you have is just unseen ownership change there, so.
Just cleaning it up.
So I have a yes from Dan and a yes from Amy. Jason,
Yes.
Bonnie,
Yes.
I'm also a yes. Number 7, the need for the variance involves more than economic considerations. Yes or no?
Madam Chair, Jason Wienerman, I'm going to go a little off here. I think it does, because as the landowner indicated, he's looking out potentially 50, 100 years down the road when economic considerations for these owners will be probably not significant. And I commend the landowner for looking out to the future and understanding the different requirements of the owners. So thank you for doing this now and not having us do this down the road.
Okay, so that's a yes from Jason. Dan,
Thanks, and I agree with the comments there. Thank you for taking care of this because most people don't. So, thank you.
okay, a yes from Dan. Amy,
Yes.
Bonnie,
Yes.
and I'm also a yes. So that's all answers in the affirmative. I'm looking for a movement to approve the variance request.
Madam Chair, I'll make a motion to approve.
I have a motion from Amy. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
A second from Dan. Jason,
Yes.
Bonnie,
Yes.
and I'm also a yes. The variance has been approved. Thank you very much. If you have any questions, please work with staff during business hours. Thank you.
Madam Chair, I need a restroom break at the moment.
Okay, so we're going to take a 5-minute break and return at 7:07.
I walked in, I could not figure out what.
All right, we are now resuming the Board of Adjustment meeting. This is for agenda item number 3. A request from Jason Smith, Sauk Rapids, Minnesota, on behalf of 5716 Walleye Road LLC from Section 10.2.11A 1B of Stearns County Land Use and Zoning Ordinance number 439 to relocate an existing accessory structure less than 200 feet from Smarts Creek, classified a trout stream, and to construct a new single-family residential dwelling less than 200 feet and within the shore impact zone of Smarts Creek. Said ordinance requires a minimum structure setback of 200 feet from a designated trout stream. Affected property is 2.72A PO Government Lot 1, at a point 33 minutes east and 33 minutes south of INT CL CSAH1 and Walleye Road, Section 20, Track 126 North, Rod 28 West, Brockway Township. Property address 5716 Walleye Road, Rice, Minnesota. Okay, and so the applicant, be sure the little green light is on, and then please state your name and address for the record.
Jason Smith, 5716 Walleye Road, Rice, Minnesota.
Okay, thank you. And a site visit roll call. Dan?
Yes.
Amy?
Yes.
Jason?
Yes.
Bonnie?
I did not visit because we were there just recently.
Okay, and I did not visit the site. Okay, a staff report, please.
The applicant owns a tract of land on the Mississippi River. He purchased this property in August of 2022. The tract is 119,000 or 830 square feet or 2.75 acres in lot area per his submitted certificate of survey. The property is zoned R1. I'm not going to go through the existing dwelling. You guys probably recall all of that from the previous meeting with the dwelling that's currently on the property. So the applicant is here tonight proposing to remove that dwelling in a floodway. He would like to construct a new 2,258 square foot dwelling, 89 feet from Smarts Creek. But that's changed too, excuse me. So let me explain. He had original proposal when he submitted his application. When we reviewed that, there were concerns about wetland impacts. And so he met with our wetland staff on the property, and it was determined that there would be wetland impacts. And so he then moved the proposed location from when he originally submitted. So he moved that location again. And so now the end result is that the structure is now proposed 2,300 square feet. So the wetland is down in here. And he had the structure closer to the property line, which would have impacted wetlands. So he moved it to the north and to the west a little bit. The dwelling proposed is 2,300 square feet, which would result in a setback of 71 feet from Smarts Creek. The original proposal, not the first one, but when he submitted, that dwelling was going to be 89 feet. So it moved it closer, but he's avoiding the wetlands. And by moving that structure, that also removed it out of the 100-year flood hazard area. So when he originally submitted, the location was partially in the 100-year flood hazard area, which he would have had to fill 15 feet around the foundation, to meet the required flood elevation. This way, he does not have to fill 15 feet around. The relocation of the accessory structure would put that accessory building at 100 feet from Smarts Creek. And his original proposal when he saw you last was 58 feet. The current lot coverage on the property is 9.1%, and the proposed lot coverage would actually be lower with the removal of that other dwelling down to 7.8%. So the property's in the shoreland overlay of the Mississippi River and, of course, Smarts Creek, the trout stream. The creek is not on the list of impaired waters, but the Mississippi River is. The septic system on the property is less than 5 years old, and that's considered compliant because of its age. The proposed location for this new dwelling is a 64.5% deviation, which his original proposal was 87.5, and then the relocation of the accessory is a 50% deviation, and the previous was 71%. One alternative to this proposal would be to square off the dwelling with the garage here, move the dwelling back, and that would, by squaring it off, that would result in about a 80.5 foot setback from the creek. And one additional alternative, which isn't very practical, but it's an alternative, would be to locate the dwelling between the new shed location and the county road. Brockway Township, the DNR and property owners within 500 feet have been notified of the request. Recommended condition would be if the variances are granted, the condition would be that the existing home must be removed, and there's an 8x12 shed in the floodway. Both of those structures would be removed prior to a construction site permit being issued for the structure, the new dwelling, and the relocation of the accessory. I do not have any correspondence for this item, Madam Chair.
Okay, thank you. For the applicant, do you have any additional information or comments you'd like to add, please?
Yeah, I have a little something put together here for you today. Angie, I think Angie has that. Pull it up. Okay, so last time we looked at both the shed and the house kind of independently, so I took the notes that we had from our last meeting, kind of tried to address them all. So on the shed, there was a no on question number 5, and the comment was there is room to move the building farther than 58 feet from the trout stream. And so if we go to the next chart, the one on the left is the previous application, and we're talking about the shed now. So what we did there is we moved the shed as close to the lot line as we could. There is a septic line that goes through there, so we butted up right up against that septic line and moved it as far from the stream as we possibly can. And if you go to the next chart, and we'll use this a couple times, the colors don't really show up awesome here, do they? Okay, maybe better over on this one. The blue lines up top are the trout stream, and each of those purple lines is a 25-foot setback from that trout stream. And so you can see how the trout stream kind of meanders through the property. We actually placed both the shed and the house in like the optimal position to get as far from the stream as possible. One thing that this doesn't show is there is septic up towards County Road 1. So the new septic system that was put in 2021 is up kind of where that mouse is right now. And so the most optimal place to put 2 structures is exactly where we put them. And so we put them as far away as possible. We actually had the house as south as possible to get towards the lot line, and that's when we worked with environmental services to come out and assure we weren't impacting the wetland, because that was brought up at the last meeting as well. And so we moved them all as far as possible. The next chart kind of addresses the house side of it. So again, we met with Environmental Services the day after the previous variance request and to kind of work on the best path forward. We also called the DNR hydrologist, and she was actually pleased with the first application that the house was moving further, the shed was moving further. As I've talked with her more so throughout this process, I think she's happy with everything we're doing because we're going as far as we can. Everything's further than what it is today. We did work with Environmental Services on the wetland. We actually had a surveyor come out and stake the house originally. That was the 85 feet that we had discussed previously. We staked it out there, found out it was impacting wetland, so then we worked with our surveyor to best adjust the location of that house to get as far away as possible. Okay, next chart. These would be the comments on the first one. So there was a no to question number 2, stating the variance was not in harmony with the intent. And the question, there are different housing designs and locations of the property that would increase setback. So if you go to the next chart, you'll see the previous again versus existing. And what you'll see is that we actually, if we go to the very next one again, Angie. Thank you. So what we did was we rotated the garage 90 degrees. We shifted it setback from the house and basically, modified the design so that we could get everything as far as possible. The little nook in the house helps us avoid the septic area. So we do have power poles and septic to contend within that area as well. And that's where that nook in the garage came in. The next chart was question number 3 was a no. The variance is not consistent with the goals and objections of the comprehensive plan. And the comment was encroaching to the creek does not create a riparian standard. And the next slide again just kind of shows that we've done everything we believe is possible to go as far away from the creek as you can. And the next chart will show the last time we were here, we were 25 feet on the house, and now we're 71. So we made substantial improvements to that. The next chart shows a note of number 5. The plight of the landowner is due to circumstances unique to the property and is not created by the landowner. And again, just talking about the choices. And just once again, we kind of looked at all our choices and optimized as much as possible to meet the goals of the board. I guess with that, I just have one other question actually to staff, and that is, you had made a comment about the condition to tear the house down first. I thought we were talking about disconnecting septic from the house. We'd like to keep the house up so we can keep storage, construction materials and things like that, because we are right on top of the shed. So we're tearing down the shed prior to the house, and so we'd like to keep the existing house up for storage of construction materials, if at all possible, during this. And it also allows us to start this year. We had talked about disconnecting septic right away and getting that all done, so that I think that was some discussion. So I guess I would just ask that we maybe could look at that with tearing it down within 12 months or something like that to allow us reasonable time to get that done. And
well, Madam Chair, this is a recommendation by the department. It's open for discussion if the board wants to talk about it. If it's going to be allowed to stay, I'm thinking we're going to want some kind of a compliance agreement signed. But that's open for discussion.
yeah, that'd be reasonable for
Just
me
to
as well.
clarify, applicant, Jason, if we allow the house to stay and give you a certain amount of time to take it down, would you take it down?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
I just want that
Yeah,
clarified.
and if we have to have some kind of agreement for that, I would sign that agreement and we could
Okay.
work through that. Yep.
Madam Chair, I'll just weigh in on that too. And for the board's consideration, I think a compliance agreement, as Dave indicated, would be beneficial. And then secondly, what we typically do in cases like this is get a financial guarantee. And so we would have Mr. Smith get us a bid from a contractor to tell us how much is it going to cost to remove it, haul it away, and then Jason would give us 125% of that, and we would hold on to that until it's done. Because even if we got a compliance agreement, we still have to sue him if he doesn't do it, and that can take years and a lot of a county attorney's time. Whereas if we have the money, we can just go do it with the money. So that would be just a consideration for the board. I think you've maybe heard that before on some other projects.
And then that money is just returned to the
Yes.
Applicant once they have it finished.
Correct.
Okay, thank you. Any questions from board members?
Madam Chair, Jason Wingerman. So, wasn't here for the board meeting. I was on vacation at the time. We are, just for backing me up a little bit, the board denied this and they're reapplying for a variance. This wasn't tabled or continued, right?
Madam Chair, Member Wienerman, that's correct. The original request was denied.
Okay.
The applicant went through some of those findings.
Yeah, I read I jumped back and read the minutes.
Okay.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Question for staff. The original one, we had correspondence from the DNR on that one, right?
We did on the original.
On the original one, but this time around, she had no correspondence.
I did not receive any.
Okay, she would have if she had issues, I'm assuming.
Oh, sorry. I spoke with her yesterday too and just asked her if there were any comments from her, and she said that she wasn't going to submit one because there was nothing she really had to add to it. So.
Okay. Any other question from board members? Okay, is there anyone in the audience who'd like to speak to this request? Okay. Please come up to the podium, make sure the little green light is on, and then state your name and address for the record.
Steve Aylen. Our physical address in Sartell is 1970 Sandstone Loop South, Sartell, Minnesota 56377. We own property that's within the 500 feet of this property. We've been trying to build for 3 years. We're still going through issues with the county and the township in order to move forward. So that address is 41024 57th Street North, Rice, Minnesota. From the last meeting, I'm kind of confused as to if, Angie, is there any way to put this map up on the thing? Because I believe Amy was the one that brought this up, which was what I had already kind of highlighted before the meeting. And I understand, I see Jason's position as wanting to build a house as close to the water as he possibly can. It's unfortunate that when he purchased the property, probably didn't do the homework that he should have with the encumbrances that are on the lot. The Stearns County Land and Zoning ordinances clearly state placement and design of height and structures, rivers and streams, designated trout stream, 200 feet, which, we're all aware of, should be 200 feet away. And I've stated this at the last meeting, but I'll give everybody a copy. In no case, shall any principal structures be permitted closer than the following distances. A, on natural environmental lakes, designated trout streams, no closer than 100 feet. And then letter G, on designated trout streams, no closer than 100 feet. I thought it was clear the last time when we wanted to do roughly a 90% deviation and be 25 feet from a stream that you're supposed to be 200 feet from it. The highlighted area is 100 feet away. The minimum, absolute minimum per ordinances and DNR regulations and Minnesota statutes. So I'm kind of wondering why we're here tonight talking about, we're doing better. We moved it away a little bit here. We're worried about the wetland up in the front. There's plenty of room to build his house, out along County Road 1 that's meets all of the restrictions that have been put into place regarding a trout stream. And that's the reason why I didn't purchase that lot. It was for sale. I mean, I looked at it, I contacted Stearns County, and they're like, well, there's a lot of issues with that. Number one, the house that's there has been abandoned. You can't do that. It's too close. I mean, I would have loved to have been 10 feet from the water and have the stream right next to you. But the reality of it is, we're dealing with what the rules are. This is what it is. So my proposal would be that Jason look at building his house back there. And that's where it falls into the lines. If he wants to put his garage over there, house there, he'd still have a view of the river. It's not going to be as close. Our property used to be what was the Portside Restaurant in Gilligan's. I would have loved to have built my house where that restaurant was, 25 feet away from the water. We had to bring in 300 loads, semi-belly dump loads of fill to meet the requirements, to be back as far as we need to, adjust this, do that. So that's just the reality of what it is. I understand he's not happy with, what I'm recommending, but that's just, there is the way to conform with what the rules are, and it would be in that highlighted area. Has anybody read the ordinances? I mean, or am I misinterpreting this? Because I think when it says in no case, comma, shall any principal structure means in no case.
Well, thank you. The purpose of the Board of Adjustment is in case there are, it's the argument for a person who would like to go against those rules and see with a board of peers that stretch across the whole county to make sure that we're covering everybody's point of view. So that's our purpose, is because of that ordinance, we are here as an opportunity for him to build a home that might not meet those requirements. So that's our purpose.
Okay, but on that property, it's reasonable to build a home that meets what the standards are, and the variance doesn't need to be approved. But it's right there. Okay?
Thank you very much.
Do your research next time.
Yeah, thank your son too for his little comments.
Is there anyone else in the audience who'd like to speak to this request?
May I comment to it?
Of course.
Thanks. Okay, Angie has another chart, and maybe we can wait for her to get back as well. But the last page of the presentation I sent over has some drawing of the septic plan that obviously the community member didn't know about. So the septic plan, which was approved by the county in 2021, put in, shows that, the very last, there you go. Yep. So that shows right now that the area that he was talking about, 168 feet from the trout stream, is already a septic system that was just put in, and there's no way to squeak a house in there. Also, the rule is 200 feet, not 100 feet, so either way, we're talking about a variance. So I believe we did we've put everything we can to try to find the optimal place for this, and believe we've come up with, a good, practical solution. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Any questions from board members? Okay. Is there anyone else in the audience who'd like to speak to this request? Hearing none, I'm open for a movement to close the public hearing.
Move to close.
I have a movement from Dan. Do I have a second?
Second?
A second from Jason. Amy?
Yes.
Bonnie?
Yes.
I'm also a yes. The public hearing is now closed. So it looks like we have a couple options. We could do both together or separately, where one is for the accessory structure and one is for the home. Do we have any opinions on if we want them together or separate?
Well, we can check with the applicant, but to me, I think they're really intertwined, because you need to remove the current accessory structure to build the house, and then if you're going to move it somewhere else, I think it's all one thing.
Okay, anybody not want to do them together?
I agree with Bonnie. We should do them together.
Agreed.
Okay. All right. So the findings of fact is to relocate an existing 30 by 40 accessory structure 100 feet from Smarts Creek, classified a trout stream, and to construct a new 2,300 square foot single family residential dwelling 71 feet within the shore impact zone of Smarts Creek. Number 1, the proposed use is allowed in the zoning districts in which the subject property is located. Yes or no?
Madam Chair, I'm going to say yes, it is allowed in R1.
Okay, we have a yes from Amy. Dan?
Yes.
Jason?
Yes.
Bonnie?
Yes.
I'm also a yes. Number 2, the variance will be in harmony with the general purposes and intent of the official controls.
Madam Chair, I'm going to say no. The rules are in place to protect the lake and the surrounding property.
Okay, we have a no from Amy. Dan?
I'm going to say yes because of the, the wandering stream that's going through there and the 200-foot setback. I know it's a rule, but I believe it's onerous.
Okay, we have a yes from Dan. Jason? Oh, sorry. No.
No, I said a yes. I'm sorry. Jeez. Sorry.
All right, so I have a no from Amy and a yes from Dan.
Yep.
Jason?
Madam Chair, I'm going to say yes, because as the applicant indicated, we have the stream, we have the septic field and the septic system, which creates some challenges on part location. So trying to navigate around this parcel with all the other required setbacks and meetings puts it more or less in harmony.
Okay, I have a yes from Jason. Bonnie?
I agree with
Yes.
Jason.
So that's a yes from Bonnie. Okay. I'm going to also say yes on this one, where I believe that they have worked very hard to fit into the building envelope, keeping in mind there's the septic system, there's the trout stream, there's the wetlands, there's the river. They listened to our concerns last time, made it smaller, moved it, worked with staff and the DNR, and I believe it is in harmony with the efforts that they put in. So that's 4 yeses and 1 no. So that's a yes for number 2. Number 3, the variance will be consistent with the comprehensive plan. Yes or no?
Madam Chair, I'm going to say yes, living goal number 3.
Okay, I have a yes from Amy. Dan?
Yes.
Jason?
Yes.
Yes from Jason. Bonnie?
Yes.
Okay, a yes for me. That's a yes for number 3. Number 4, the property owner proposes to use the property in a reasonable manner. Yes or no?
Madam Chair, yes, it's reasonable to want a home.
Okay, I have a yes from Amy. Dan?
Yes, Madam Chair.
Jason?
Yes.
Bonnie?
Yes.
I'm also a yes. Number 5, the plight of the landowner is due to circumstances unique to the property, not created by the landowner. Yes or no?
I'm going to say yes, it is unique to this property because there's wetland, there's a creek, there's the river, there's an unusual shape to the property. So I am going to say yes, it is unique.
Okay, that's a yes from Bonnie. Dan?
Yes.
Amy?
You circle back.
Jason?
Yes.
Okay. Amy?
Yes.
Okay, that's a yes from Amy. I'm also going to say a yes. Number 6, the variance, if granted, maintains the essential character of the locality. Yes or no?
Madam Chair, I'm going to say yes. There's an existing home structure on the site. There's an existing septic system. So it is a residential developed site. They are relocating certain characteristics of the site, but I think the overall parcel itself is going to remain a single home residential site. So it will continue the essential character of the locality.
Okay, that's a yes from Jason. Dan?
I'm going to say yes, and the house, now the new residence be pushed quite a bit further back from the river and falls with most of the housing in the area.
That's a yes from Dan. Amy?
Yes.
Bonnie?
I'm going to say yes for the reason that this isn't just a plain open lot. It had a house on it, and this is an improvement of where that house was located.
Okay. And I'll also be a yes, so that's a yes for number 6. Number 7, the need for the variance involves more than economic considerations, yes or no?
Yes, it does. It's a future home.
Okay.
And no economics where there's.
Yes for Dan.
Yep.
Amy?
Yes.
Jason?
Yes.
Bonnie?
Yes.
I'm also a yes because I believe a big part of this was the trout stream, the wetlands, the proximity to the water. So I'm going to say yes. So that's all 7 in the yes. I want to also bring up the 2 recommended conditions. So I'm looking for a motion to approve the variance, but I also want to open up if we want to add either of the conditions suggested in the packet or the compliance agreement and financial guarantee that was mentioned.
So, Madam Chair, I will make a motion to approve the variance request with a condition that the applicant provides 125%
Financial guarantee?
financial guarantee to the county for the removal of the house within 6 months of completion of the new structure.
Okay, I have a motion from Jason. Do I have a second?
That's 6 months within completion, right?
Completion of the new structure.
I'll second that.
Okay, that's a second from Dan. Amy?
Yes.
Bonnie?
Yes.
I'm also a yes. The variance has been approved. Thank you very much. And if you have any questions, please work with staff during business hours.
Thank you very much.
Okay, moving on to agenda item number 4. An after the fact request from Robert and Bonnie Arnzen, Freeport, Minnesota, from sections 5.1.2C3, 9.9.9A3, and 10.2.11A1A of Stearns County Land Use and Zoning Ordinance number 439 to leave as constructed a deck addition on a legal non-conforming principal structure located wholly within the shore impact zone, less than 63 feet from the center line of Longview Circle, classified a private road easement, and less than 200 feet landward of the ordinary high water level of Long Lake, classified as natural environment. And after the fact request from section 9.9.9A1 to leave as constructed a permitted accessory structure located less than 10 feet from a side property line on a property with R1 zoning district setbacks. And after the fact request to leave as constructed an illegal accessory structure less than 200 feet landward of the ordinary high water level, and to relocate an illegal accessory structure less than 200 feet landward of the ordinary high water level. Lastly, a request from section 5.1.2C3, 9.9.9A3, and 10.2.11A1A to construct an addition on a legal non-conforming principal structure located wholly within the shore impact zone, less than 63 feet from the center line of a private road easement within the shore impact zone, and less than 200 feet landward of the ordinary high water level of Long Lake. Said ordinance requires structures be placed a minimum 10 feet from a side property line on a property with R1 zoning district setbacks, a minimum 63 feet from the center line of a private road easement, a minimum 200 feet from the ordinary high water line of a lake classified natural environment, and does not allow additions or alterations to a non-conforming structure located wholly or partly within the shore impact zone. Affected property, 2.61A, S645 minutes of that part of Government Lot 7 lying east of Highway 167 and west of Long Lake, Section 21, Track 126 North, Rod 32 West, Millwood Township. Property address 40122 Longview Circle, Melrose, Minnesota. All right, can the applicants please move forward? Make sure the little green light is on, and then please state your name and address for the record.
Hello, my name is Bob Arnson. This is my wife, Bonnie. We live at 40122 Longview Circle, Melrose, Minnesota.
Okay, thank you. Site roll call visit to see who was able to visit the site. Dan,
Yes, I visited the site.
Amy,
Yes.
Jason,
Yes.
Bonnie,
Yes, and I had a discussion with the owner as to what the plans were.
okay, thank you. And I was not able to visit the site. Staff report, please.
Okay. Before I get going here, there's 7 potential findings for this. So the board can discuss that on how you want to handle it. You know, there's a number of sheds. If you want to do all the sheds on one, or however you want to do that. But just so you're aware of what's coming up here at the end. Okay, the applicants currently own a tract of record, approximately 2.61 acres in area. That's on Long Lake, which is a natural environment lake. They purchased the property in June of 2011. The property is actually zoned A40, but because it's less than 5 acres, the R1 setbacks and uses apply to this lot. According to our county assessor's records, the original dwelling was constructed in 1960, which is prior to the official controls. In the year 2000, a previous owner applied for a variance, which was actually current owner's brother. They applied for a variance to construct a 10 by 12 entryway addition on this structure and a 28 by 32 accessory structure. The variance was granted with a condition that an existing 16 by 22 and 8 by 10 structure would be removed from the property. The 8 by 10 was removed, the 16 by 22 is still there, which we'll get to. In 2002, the previous owner was granted a construction site permit to construct the entryway and the 24 by 32 accessory. The addition, the entry addition was constructed, but the 24 by 32 was not. In 2004, the previous owner was granted another construction site permit for the 28 by 32 accessory, which then also required that the 16 by 22 shed and 8 by 10 shed that were specified in the 2000 variance be removed. Again, the 8 by 10 was removed, but the 16 by 22 is still there today. Okay, in 2018, these same owners applied for variance to construct a 1,092 square foot dwelling addition, 50 feet landward from the lake and 42 feet from the center of Longview Circle. And then also to remove the condition that the 16 by 22 shed be removed from the property, and those requests were denied in 2018. Okay, sometime between 2021 and 2024, there was a 16 by 16 deck added on the back side of the home. The deck is 71.09 feet landward of the ordinary high water level, and it's 61.4 feet from the center of Longview Circle. Tonight, the applicants are requesting to construct a 964 square foot residential dwelling addition. There won't be any new bedrooms in this addition. And this would be 69.7 feet from the ordinary high water level and 43.9 feet from the center of Longview Circle. So if that request would be granted, their illegal deck that was constructed up in the corner would be removed, because that's where the addition would be. If that request is not granted, they would like to keep the deck in place as it was constructed. Okay, the 16 by 22 accessory that was supposed to have been removed in 2000, they would like to relocate that towards the rear of the property. The lean on it, the lean part there would be removed, and just the red shed would be relocated back 149 feet from the ordinary high water level. So they'd move it back here. The gazebo that's here, per the applicant, was removed last weekend. They'd also like to keep this 8x8 shed here. It's a playhouse for the grandchildren. And then there's a small 4x6 up here that they would like to keep. And of course, they don't meet the required lake setback. The shed that was permitted back in 2004 is too close to the side property line. We had obsolete property line mapping, and therefore this shed that has a permit ended up 5.12 feet from the sideline. So obviously they would like to keep that shed. It was permitted, but to clean that up, they would need a variance to keep it there. Let's see here. So the property is in the shoreland overlay, obviously, of Long Lake. That's a natural environment lake. It is not on the list of impaired waters, although they did have a major fish kill there a month or so ago, a couple months ago. The septic system is compliant. There was an inspection done in February of 24. That's compliant. The previous lot, or excuse me, the proposed impervious lot coverage, if everything is granted, would end up being 6.1%. One alternative would be to design an addition that meets the road setback from Longview Circle. That would greatly reduce the size of the addition, of course. Another alternative would be to remove the 16 by 22 shed that should have already been removed from the property. Millwood Township, the city of St. Rosa, the DNR, the Sauk River Watershed District, and owners within 500 feet have been notified of the request. I do have a letter from the neighboring property owners, from Janet and Ron Koopminers and Jeannie and Richard Fleck. It was addressed to me. Dave, I am writing in regard to the letter received on July 19th pertaining to Robert and Bonnie Arnzen requests from Environmental Services. The Arnzens are our neighbors, and they will drop anything to help us out when the need arises. They demonstrate good stewardship and respect for their property and the lake shore. We have no issues with what they are proposing, and we stand behind them 100%. We ask that you approve their request. And Bob, did you get something from the township?
Yes, from the township,
Okay.
they signed a letter there.
Okay. Madam Chair, I got a phone call from Millwood Township today, and they, at the last hour here, they submitted a letter. It says, "To whom it may concern, please be advised that Millwood Township does not have any disputes of the variances requested by Bob and Bonnie Arnzen. Millwood Township does not have any plans to adopt Longview Circle as a township road and build it up to township specifications." And that's signed by Nate Arnzen and Joe Wickman, they're supervisors of Millwood Township. And I believe that's all I have. If you've got any questions, which there may be many, I'm right here, but it may be easier to look at the survey and just highlight things. Thank you.
Thank you. For the applicant, is there any more additional information or comments you'd like to make for this request?
Yes, I have some comments. Excuse me. We are requesting this variance to add on to the addition to our house to include a single car stall garage, a handicap accessible entry, ADA handicap accessible bathroom, and a main floor laundry. We've been living here for 3 years and would like to make this a retirement home, but the way the house is now, it's not very workable. The property's been in our family for over 50 years and has been a year-round home for over 23 years. We realize that we're located in a natural environment lake and we have special setbacks. But the size of our property does not enable us to meet the setbacks without getting a variance. We are aware we have other buildings in the shore impact zone, and we have moved the gazebo off the property, and we are relocating the red shed this fall. We have a signed letter with the environmental services that we will come into compliance. So that's that. Okay. We've also done a property line adjustment with Russ Herdering, so we are in compliance with the 28 by 32 and the 4 by 6 buildings. Russ has gone on a mini vacation, so he didn't have a chance to sign it, but I talked to him. He's good with it. Okay. We've had it resurveyed, and he's good with our west line now, has moved over 20 feet. So we have 25 foot behind our property.
That just happened Monday.
That happened Monday.
Okay. Well, we'll have to analyze that.
Okay.
Yeah.
The present deck will be removed. We built it there with the house addition. We built it there. I built it there for Bonnie, so at least she had a way to get out of the house in case of emergency. We have a letter from Millwood Township, as Dave said, stating they're okay with the setbacks on the driveway, and they don't plan on improving the road. We care very much about the lake and the lake shore. We wouldn't do anything to compromise it. So we're asking you to consider this our request. Last October, Bonnie broke her leg again, and she was non-weight bearing and wheelchair bound and unable to get out of the house without assistance. And it was very hard for me to leave for work knowing I was leaving her in a house that if something would happen, she couldn't get out of. So that's why we decided to ask you for this request, again, to make this house more usable for our retirement and for living there. So that's all I got.
Thank you. Questions from board members?
Madam Chair, question for staff. So on the 28 by 32 accessory structure that was permitted in 2004, seeing as that was based on obsolete county information, have we revoked the permit for that, or is the permit that was issued still out there? Or so as it's permitted for its current location, even though the location was improperly located, do we need to act on that?
Madam Chair, Member Wienerman, this is basically a cleanup issue. The permit's been issued, the structure will remain. Yep. You know, I guess if you denied it, he'd have to move it so it's 10 feet. But in light of the fact that they have an agreement with the neighbor to move the boundary 20 feet, which we haven't looked at that. We don't know if that's valid. But if that were the case, then it wouldn't, it'd be a non-issue. But yeah, so the request, the main request is the addition. But when you dig into it and you find all these other structures and things that are going on, basically this is added to the request so that, you know, we can clean up that 5-foot discrepancy there.
So, because there's a whole bunch of cleanups, and you have a new survey that supposedly moves the line based on your assessment. If we were to act on the house addition and table/continue the rest, could this stuff just happen to go away because it's found compliant?
Madam Chair, Member Wienerman, we still have the fact that they don't meet the lake setback.
And staff, if we were to decide to, approve portions of this request, could we approve the request for the garage contingent on validation of that transfer of land? Can we word it that way, or?
My understanding is that if that transfer of land happens, then it wouldn't matter anymore because they'd be.
Right, but right now we don't have, we have their good word and I'm sure it's true.
Yep.
But, the county would have to validate that to make sure that that's correct.
So I think what that would be is that if what we know for absolute certain tonight is that as far as we know, it's 5 foot away, so we could only rule on that. And if they do change the 20 feet, then the variance would exist, but it would no longer be necessary. Is how I understand it.
And Madam Chair, that would just be for that structure.
Right.
Not this one, the relocation to here, this one, and then the addition. So
Madam
I
Chair.
don't know that from a department perspective, I think we'd want you to make decision on these all at the same time.
Madam Chair, question for staff. Did you say that it doesn't meet the lake setback either?
This was granted a variance to be less than the required setback.
From the lake?
Correct.
So that doesn't change?
Nope.
The only
Yep.
thing we're looking at that is an improperly placed property line that we found out after the fact.
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right, so that's a non-issue to me.
And again, I'd just like to reiterate that moving this boundary line 20 feet would not gain them enough to meet the lake setback.
Oh, yeah, because you're not going to move the shed. Yeah.
Okay, just so that I'm trying to even wrap my mind around what all we're being asked to do here. Okay, so I see one findings of fact and the rest are after the fact findings. So the one finding of fact is to construct the addition on the house, and the reason why it needs a variance is because it's too close to the road and too close to the lake. Does that sound right? Okay, and then we have a whole bunch of after the facts, which are so we've got the shed that's halfway off the screen at the bottom, where they're going to take off the lean-to side and then move it so it's further from the lake, meets the property line, but will still be technically too close to the lake. Does that sound right?
That is correct.
Okay, so we've got that one. We've got the playhouse, which they wish to keep in its current location, and that's because it's too close to the lake.
That's correct.
Okay, and then we've got this big garage thing, which we talked about, which is too close to the lake, which has already been okayed by a previous variance, but it's too close to the property line as far as we know. And the little shed that's next to it, they want to keep there, but it's too close to the lake.
That's correct.
Do you remember what you just said?
Okay. Yeah.
Well, I can do that. Now I have to figure out which one of these papers says all of those things.
There's also, Madam Chair, there's also a little shed here right next to this one that they're proposing to remove. So
Okay.
that's not part of the request.
And it sounds like if we do not approve the addition to the home, we would need to look at if they can leave the current deck in place. Does that sound right?
That's correct.
Okay, so these two are,
And Madam Chair, I have a question for staff. Wouldn't the playhouse, or could the playhouse be considered a water-orientated structure, and then it wouldn't apply?
Madam Chair, Member Mossman, they have their one water oriented
Okay.
right there.
Okay,
So that
Thank you.
guy's uses up their water oriented.
all right, thank you.
Do we need to argue or discuss the deck addition if the existing deck addition if we approve the addition to the home? Does that make sense what that question is?
No.
No, okay, so it's either or.
The deck would go away if the addition were approved.
Okay, I'm gonna put that one over here. Okay, any questions from board members while I dig through my papers?
Madam Chair, if I could add one more thing. The original proposal that the applicants brought forward, the addition was not meeting the property line setback here either. And we had a discussion about that, and they agreed to downsize the addition and meet the setback there.
Okay, thank you. So then the opening or the open considerations are that it's too close to the road and too close to the lake, or it's attached to a home that's too close to the lake. Okay.
That's correct.
Thank you.
And Madam Chair, I'm wondering with the various sheds, if we could just go one by one. I'd like to be able to hear the opinions of other board members, you know, about each structure.
We should probably start with the addition first.
Well, we haven't closed the public hearing yet. Are still open for questions from the board if we have any of those, or any comments from. Does anybody on the board still have questions yet? Is there anyone in the audience who'd like to speak to this request? Is there anyone in the audience who'd like to speak to this request? Oh, is there anyone in the audience who'd like to speak to this request? Okay, hearing none, I am open for a movement to close the public hearing.
Move to close.
Okay, I have a movement from Dan. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second from Amy. Jason?
Yes.
Bonnie?
Yes.
And I'm a yes. The public hearing is now closed. Okay. The one that's the least complicated in my mind is the house addition. Can we start with that one, or does someone have a different preference?
No, I think we should start with the addition because it could potentially eliminate one.
Okay. All right. So the findings of fact: to construct a 964 square foot dwelling addition on a legal non-conforming principal structure located wholly within the shore impact zone, 43.9 feet from the center line of a private road easement within the shore impact zone, and 69.7 feet landward of the ordinary high water line of Long Lake. Okay. Question number one, the proposed use is allowed in the zoning districts in which the subject property is located, yes or no?
Madam Chair, Jason Newman, yes, it is. A house with a deck or a house with an expansion is allowed in the district.
Okay, we have a yes from Jason. Dan?
Yes.
Go ahead, Amy.
Just to clarify, is that an R1 then or an A40? So it is.
So he was saying it's A40, but because it's smaller than 5 acres, then it's R1 setbacks.
That's correct.
So-
Madam Chair.
Okay, then I'm a yes.
A40 zoning, but requirements, ordinances are of R1.
I just wanted that on record, so.
Yeah, right. It's zoned A40, but it's because of the size of the tract, it's considered R1 setbacks.
Okay.
Thank you. So that's a yes from Jason, Dan, and Amy. Bonnie?
Yes.
Okay, and I'm also a yes. Number two, the variance will be in harmony with the general purposes and intent of the official controls, yes or no? I'm going to say yes on this one. One of the conditions is the distance from the center line, and we did have feedback from the township saying that they were not ever planning as far as they know, to take over that road. So I don't believe that that easement will be too much of a challenge. And it is attached to the house, which is already that close to the ordinary high water line. The addition itself is not closer to it. It's actually on the not lake side of the home. So I think it is in harmony.
I'd like to add to yours, Joe. Mine's a yes too, but I'd like to just point out too that the neighbors have no issues with an addition.
Okay. Dan,
I'm a yes for the same reasons.
Jason,
Yes.
Bonnie.
Yes.
Okay. Number 3, the variance will be consistent with the comprehensive plan. Yes or no?
Madam Chair, I'm going to say yes under living goal number 3.
Okay. So number 3, I like to read them because not everybody knows what they are, is to support housing options that give people in all life stages and of all economic means viable choices for safe, stable, and affordable homes. So that's a yes from Amy. Dan,
Yes.
Jason,
Yes.
Bonnie,
Yes.
and I'm a yes. Number 4, the property owner proposes to use the property in a reasonable manner. Yes or no?
Madam Chair, I want to say yes. It is reasonable, want a handicap accessible home.
Okay. Yes from Amy. Dan,
Yes for the same safety concerns.
Jason,
Yes.
Bonnie.
Yes.
I'm also a yes. Number 5, the plight of the landowner is due to circumstances unique to the property, not created by the landowner. Yes or no?
Yes, because the structure was there. They bought it as is, and they're making improvements because of future needs.
Okay, we have a yes from Dan. Amy,
I agree with Dan, so I'm a yes.
Jason,
Madam Chair, I'm a yes. So it's when the applicant was talking about the family member's health conditions, they're not created by the landowner, but they are conditions the landowner needs to be aware of. So it's not a property issue, but it is a human living condition issue that I think is valid as well.
okay. Bonnie,
Yes.
and I'm also a yes. Number 6, the variance, if granted, maintains the essential character of the locality. Yes or no?
Madam Chair, I'm going to say yes. This home has been there for 50 years in their family.
Okay, a yes from Amy. Dan,
Yes.
Jason,
Yes.
Bonnie.
Yes.
I'm also a yes. I don't think adding a small attachment to a home is going to change the locality.
Also, keep in mind, there's really no homes there. It's just campers, and they're only there seasonally, correct? So, and you guys plan on being there all year round.
Okay, number 7, the need for the variance involves more than economic considerations. Yes or no?
Madam Chair, I'm going to say yes. I believe economics were not discussed.
A yes from Amy. Dan,
Yes.
Jason,
Yes.
Bonnie.
Yes.
I'm also a yes, so that's a yes for number 7. I don't remember if there were any conditions on that.
No.
Okay, so all answers in the affirmative. I'm looking for a movement to approve the house addition variance request.
Madam Chair, I'll approve the house addition variance request.
I have a movement from Amy. Do I have a second?
Second, Jason Wienerman.
Second by Jason. Dan,
Yes.
Bonnie,
Yes.
and I'm also a yes. That request has been approved. Okay, so that means we do not need to make any call on the deck addition. All right. The next one, how about the garage? Sound okay?
Can you clarify what garage we're talking about?
Yes.
Property line garage?
So this is to leave as constructed, a permitted accessory. Go ahead.
Yeah, well, we can do that through the findings process. I just didn't want us to group all of the buildings together because I think each one has different concepts.
Yep, that makes sense. Okay, so this is,
Just so we kind of talk about them separately.
that's a good idea. So this is after the fact findings for just the garage. So to leave as constructed, a permitted 28 by 32 accessory structure located 5.12 feet from a side property line on a property with R1 zoning district setbacks.
Madam Chair, can we quick look at the survey map so we're all concurrent on the structure we're looking at?
Okay, and this one it did not meet the lake setback, correct?
it already has a variance
Variance
for
for
that.
lake, but it was the property line.
So this is just the property line.
So, Madam Chair, for clarification, the garage is one issue and then the shed next to it is another? Are they two structures independent of each other or are they connected?
It looks like we could, no, this is accessory, that's multiples on that
Madam
one.
Chair, Member Wienerman, so the 28 by 32 was permitted, doesn't meet the side property line.
Yep.
This meets the side property line, does not meet the lake setback, and they are not the same, they're not attached. It's just resting up against the wall here.
Okay.
So is that one, that gray little shed, is that the 4x6?
It is,
Okay, just trying to keep track.
not easy.
So let's talk about the bigger one that thing's next to. Sound good?
Okay, so we're doing the 16 by.
The 28 by 32.
And before we move forward, I have a question for staff. Does the total square footage of all of these sheds, how does that compare to the total square footage that is allowable?
They're about 300 some odd square feet under
Under, okay.
of what they're allowed.
And previously, the commissioners got rid of the number of structures? Is that
Right.
correct? All
Madam
right.
Chair, Member Mossman, the total number of sheds was removed from the ordinance.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. So this is the larger structure in this picture, where it is located 5.12 feet from a side property line. Number 1, is the proposed use allowed in the zoning district in which the subject property is located? Yes or no?
Madam Chair, I'm going to say yes. It's the A40 with the consideration of the R1.
Okay, that's a yes from Amy. Dan?
Yes.
Jason?
Yes.
Bonnie?
Yes.
And I'm also a yes. Number 2, is the variance in harmony with the general purposes and intent of the official control?
I'm going to say yes. It was at the time when the variance permit was granted at that. And the change has been the property line. And with the consideration, although we don't know for fact, we do have an opportunity to improve that property line situation.
Okay, so that's a yes from Dan. Go ahead, Jason.
I would add on to that, we're also looking at the high water issue. And this is on the outside edge of the parcel in question. So it's about as far from the high water line as you can get. So this location of this particular structure is not a significant contributor to any concern with the water.
Okay, so that's a yes from Dan and a yes from Jason. I want to also say yes, considering, did the applicant act in good faith and attempt to comply with the ordinance? I would say yes, because as far as they and the county knew, it did comply, and then they found out it didn't. So I'm also a yes. Amy?
Yes.
Bonnie?
Yes.
Okay, that's a yes for number 2. Number 3, is the variance request consistent with the comprehensive plan? I'm going to say yes under Lakeshore Living Policies number 3, discourage the alteration of natural shorelands and the creation of impervious surface in nearshore areas, because as Jason said to the previous one, they are as far away from the water as they can get within their property. So I'm a yes. Dan?
I'm a yes.
Amy?
Yes.
Jason?
Yes.
Bonnie?
Yes.
That's a yes for number 3. Number 4, is the property owner proposing to use the property in a reasonable manner not permitted by an official control?
Yes, it's reasonable to have a garage on your property.
Okay, that's a yes from Dan. Did you have something, Jason?
No, same reason.
Okay, Amy?
Yes.
Bonnie?
Yes.
Okay, and I'm guessing that was a yes from Jason and a yes from myself, so that's a yes for number 4. Number 5 is the plight of the landowner due to circumstances unique to the property, not created by the landowner.
Madam Chair, I'm going to say yes. He didn't create this. It was the previous owner.
Okay, that's a yes from Amy. Dan?
Yes.
Jason?
Yes.
Bonnie?
Yes.
And I'm a yes. Number 6, will the variance maintain the essential character of the locality, yes or no?
Madam Chair, I'm going to say yes. This is a small residential community. The building's been there for a bit, so it's nothing new. There's nothing going to be changed by keeping it up where
Okay.
it is.
And it's not a traveled road either, so I'm a yes as well. Honestly, it's just kind of like a little seasonal lot for campers.
Okay, so a yes from Jason and a yes from Amy. Dan?
Yes.
Bonnie?
Yes.
And I'm also a yes. Number 7, the need for the variance involves more than economic considerations, yes or no?
Madam Chair, I'm going to say yes. Economics were not discussed.
That's a yes from Amy. Dan?
Yes.
Jason?
Yes.
Bonnie?
Yes.
And I'm also a yes. Okay, so all the questions answered in the affirmative. I'm looking for a movement to approve the variance to leave as constructed this 28 by 32 accessory structure.
Madam Chair, I'll make a motion to leave structure as is.
Got a motion from Amy. Do I have a second?
Second?
Second by Jason. Dan?
Yes.
Bonnie?
Yes.
And I'm also a yes. Okay, that one has been approved. All right. Next. So let's talk about this 4x6 accessory structure. Does that sound okay for folks?
Yep.
All right, so,
If I keep, we're fine to get rid of that. It's all it's in is garden tools, okay? Just so they don't mess up the garage, but whatever. If we definitely can get rid of that, that's not a issue at all. We will eliminate it, not a problem.
Madam Chair, so based upon what you've just said, to make sure we're doing things correctly, are you formally requesting consideration for that particular piece be removed from this application with the expectation you would remove that structure?
Yes, I guess that's what I'm saying, right.
And then the deadline would be November 1st. That's the agreement.
No problem.
So,
Right. The applicants did sign a compliance agreement that if they weren't granted a variance for these structures, that they would remove them by November 1st. So,
Okay, so as long as they're okay with removing that from the, after the fact, great.
Then we can strike that one.
Can I ask just one question?
Yeah.
Now, if the line situation, the reason that needs to be moved is because of that line, right?
Lake, and that's not going to change, yeah.
Okay, I'm on that one. Okay, got you. Yeah, we'll get rid of it.
okay, so to summarize, the applicant has formally requested that we do not talk about the 4x6 illegal accessory structure, that they plan to remove it, so we will not rule on it tonight. Okay?
Andy, just for, do we need to do anything for that, or?
Do we need to
okay.
vote on? No.
the record will reflect the applicant has withdrawn that portion.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, so then we just have the two left, the playhouse
and the other
and
shed.
then the relocation and allowing of that shed that will still be out of bounds. That sound right? Okay, so let's start with the relocation one because that's the next one on top of my pile. Okay. The variance request is to relocate an illegal 16 by 22 foot accessory structure 149.2 feet landward of the ordinary high water line. Okay, number 1. Is the proposed use allowed in the zoning district in which the subject property is located, yes or no?
Madam Chair, I'm going to say yes. It's allowed in A40 with the consideration of R1 zone.
Okay, we have a yes for Amy. Dan?
Yes.
Jason?
Madam Chair, I'm going to say yes, based upon the evidence that the Environmental Services staff provided that we are under the impervious surface limit, so they're good to go. Is the only thing we're looking at is high water here, so we're fine.
Bonnie?
Yes.
Okay, and I'm also a yes. Number 2, is the variance in harmony with the general purposes and intent of the official control? Yes or no? In this case, I'm going to say yes because they are actually moving it farther away from the lake and still trying to keep it appropriate legal distance from the property line. So I'm going to say yes, it is in harmony because they're moving it as far away as their property allows. Dan?
Madam Chair, do we have a location on the site where it's being moved to?
Yes.
Did I miss something there? I was looking for it.
Yep. So
Oh, that's the new location up there. Okay, I got you. Okay.
Yep. So
Okay.
the variance
Thank you.
specifically only states that it will be 149.2 feet landward. So from my understanding, it could be anywhere north or south, but it still has to be that far from the water.
Perfect. I didn't look down far enough. I'm a yes. Thanks.
Nope, that's fine. Amy?
Yes.
Jason?
Yes.
Bonnie?
Yes.
Okay, that's a yes for number 2. Number 3, is the variance request consistent with a comprehensive plan?
Madam Chair, I'm going to say yes, but I'm going to do it in a very lazy fashion. The same that you used on the last one, the living lake goals. I can't remember which number it was, but protecting the shoreline.
Yep,
Lake
number
Shore
3.
Living number 3.
Yes, please.
Yep. For the creation of impervious surface in nearshore areas. Okay, so that's a yes from Jason. Dan?
Yes.
Amy?
Yes.
Bonnie?
Yes.
And I'm also a yes. Number 4, is the property owner proposing to use the property in a reasonable manner not permitted by an official control?
I'm going to say yes because I think it's reasonable for them to want to continue to use the shed, and they are trying to move it as far away as possible.
Okay, that's a yes from Bonnie. Dan?
Yes, same reasons.
Amy?
Yes.
Jason?
I'm going to say yes, and I'm also going to add, reflecting the removal of the other shed. We are consolidating uses in less facilities and structures.
Okay, and I'm also a yes, so that's a yes for number 4.
And as long as we stipulate that the lean-to is removed.
Does that need to be stated?
We probably could add that as a condition.
Addition.
Madam Chair, that could be added as a condition.
Okay.
All right, question number 5. Is the plight of the landowner due to circumstances unique to the property, not created by the landowner?
Madam Chair, Jason Wienerman, it is. They haven't got the 200-foot setback distance.
Okay,
So we're dealing with that here.
got a yes from Jason. Dan?
Yes.
Amy?
Yes.
Bonnie?
Yes.
And I'm also a yes. Number 6, will the variance maintain the essential character of the locality, yes or no?
Madam Chair, I'm going to say yes. Most partials do have a shed on it, and it is a minimal maintenance road, basically.
So that's
Not changing anything.
a yes from Amy. Dan?
Yes.
Jason?
Yes.
Bonnie?
Yes.
And I'm also a yes. Number 7, the need for the variance involves more than economic considerations, yes or no? I'm going to state that economics were not discussed. This more involves trying to keep things away from the lake. So I'm a yes. Dan?
I'm a yes.
Amy?
Yes.
Jason?
Yes.
Bonnie?
Yes.
So that's a yes for number 7. So I'm all questions in the affirmative. I'm looking for a movement to approve the variance and include the condition of removing the lean-to.
Madam Chair, I'll make a motion to relocate the shed with the condition of the lien being removed.
That's a movement from Amy. Do I have a second?
I'll second that.
A second from Dan. Jason?
Yes.
Bonnie?
Yes.
And I'm also a yes. That variance has been approved. Okay, so I think we're on the last one. Is this the playhouse? Okay, so the playhouse is the 8x8. Is that correct?
Madam Chair, I have one question for the applicant.
Mm-hmm.
Did you consider, since you're moving this quite large shed, did you consider moving the playhouse to make that into more compliant?
Yes, but I guess to keep it back that distance or further from the lake, the only place we could really move it would be north of our 28 by 32 garage, and that's where our drain field is. And I really don't want the grandkids playing on the drain field. So other than that, I guess we don't have a whole lot of choices, okay?
Okay, so after the fact findings, where the variance request is to leave as constructed an 8x8 illegal accessory structure 118 feet landward of the ordinary high water level. Number 1, is the proposed use allowed in the zoning district in which the subject property is located? Yes or no?
Madam Chairman, I say yes, it is allowed in the 840 with consideration of R1 zoning.
Okay, a yes from Amy. Dan?
Yes.
Jason?
Yes.
Bonnie?
Yes.
And I'm a yes. Number 2, is the variance in harmony with the general purposes and intent of the official control? Yes or no?
Madam Chair, if we look at what they've agreed to with the variances we've committed and the removal of the gazebo, this is the last thing left in the middle of the property. So I believe they've done significant effort to move things from the high water level, which meets the general purpose and intent of the official controls, and this is just kind of an after the fact.
So that's a yes for Jason. Dan?
Yes, and for the same reason, it's a children's playhouse, and you know all the toys that they've got. If they got a central location and put them away, it's usually nice to have them close to where they play for those who have grandkids.
Okay, that's a yes for Dan. Amy?
Yes.
Bonnie?
I'll say yes reluctantly. I think we have to be careful not to put emotion into it as far as what the purpose of this building is, because that could come back to bite us on other requests. But I will say yes at this one.
Okay, that's a yes from Bonnie. So in harmony with the general purposes where we want to keep things away from the lake. And we're not moving it because the only place that they could move it would be in the drain field. I think yes. So that's a yes for number 2. Number 3, is the variance request consistent with the comprehensive plan? Yes or no?
Madam Chair, I'm going to mix things up and go with living goals number 3, support housing options that give people in all stages of life and economic means viable choices for safe homes.
Okay, that's a yes for Jason. Dan?
Yes.
Amy?
Yes.
Bonnie?
Yes.
And I'm a yes. That's a yes for number 3. Number 4, is the property owner proposing to use the property in a reasonable manner not permitted by an official control?
Madam Chairman, I say yes, it's reasonable to want to store children's toys in a shed.
Okay. Dan?
Yes.
Jason?
Yes.
Bonnie?
Yes.
I'm also a yes. Number 5, is the plight of the landowner due to circumstances unique to the property not created by the landowner? So for this one, I'm going to say yes, because technically there is no place on the property that is far enough away from the lake. So it is unique to the property.
Okay.
Dan?
Yes.
Amy?
Yes.
Bonnie?
Yes.
Jason?
Yes.
Okay, that's a yes for number 5. Number 6, will the variance maintain the essential character of the locality? Yes or no?
Madam Chairman, I say yes, it's reasonable to want a shed to store items in.
Okay, that's a yes from Amy. Dan?
Yes, there's other structures on the property. So.
Jason?
Yes.
Bonnie?
And I'll say yes, especially because this is not a heavily populated area.
Okay, and I am also a yes. So that's a yes for number 6. Number 7, the need for the variance involves more than economic considerations. Yes or no?
Madam Chairman, I say yes, economics were not discussed.
That's a yes from Amy. Dan?
Yes.
Jason?
Yes.
Bonnie?
Yes.
I'm also a yes. So all the questions answered in the affirmative. I'm looking for a movement to approve the variance to leave as constructed an 8x8 illegal accessory structure 118 feet landward of the ordinary high water line.
Madam Chair, I'll make a motion to leave as is the 8x8 shed and whatever else you said.
I have a movement from Amy. Is there a second?
Second.
A second from Jason. Dan?
Yes.
Bonnie?
Yes.
I'm also a yes. The variance has been approved. Thank you very much. If you have any questions, please work with staff during business hours.
Thank you.
I have a,
Okay. Agenda item number 5 is the approval of the meeting minutes.
I make a motion to approve the minutes from July meeting.
Okay, I have a motion from Dan,
I'll second it.
a second from Amy. Bonnie,
Yes.
Jason,
Yes.
and I'm also a yes. The meeting minutes have been approved. Agenda item number 6. The next meeting is September 12th. Any questions or any other information on that?
Says September 8th.
September 8th on
Up there.
the 8th or the 12th?
I'm gonna check right now.
I could make the 8th.
When's our next meeting? It's wrong.
It's gonna be the 12th, September 12th.
Okay, then that's a typo up there.
is Monday, this coming Monday, and the meeting's September 12th, so
Okay.
August 12th and September 12th. Amy has 2, Bethy Jo has 2 currently. There's 4 currently.
Okay.
Okay.
Are we gonna have all these after the fact?
I don't honestly even know what he has. I've been so away from my computer.
I think so.
Okay. All right.
Yeah, this is wrong. Yep.
All right, so I'm looking for a motion to close the meeting, to adjourn. Motion to adjourn.
So moved.
I have a motion from Jason. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second from Dan. Amy?
Yes.
Bonnie?
Yes.
All right. Meeting is adjourned. Thank you very much.
Okay, now that the meeting is adjourned, I have a question for staff.
Yeah, I got a comment too.
In the future,
Yeah.